Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Flagship. I'm your host, Zach Berry. Joining me, gracious with his time, is just like me, but times probably 1,000. He is as busy as anyone these days. That is Mr. Tobias Bass of The Athletic, basketball scout, analyst, news editor, all of that good stuff. We're here to talk portal. As we record this, it's getting hectic, and the coming weeks and months are going to be even crazier. So he's here to talk portal. We're going to talk Ole Miss. We're going to talk Chris Beard. But before we get into that, as always, I want to remind you this show in the studio is powered by College Corner. They've got 3 locations: Oxford, Flowood, and Ridgeland. Can't get to any of those 3, no big deal. Go check them out, collegecornerstore.com. They've got merch, everything from polos to T-shirts. They've got hoop in the sip gear if you want some basketball gear, all of that and more at College Corner or at collegecornerstore.com. The new location in Oxford, spectacular, 4,000 plus square footage. Scott and the folks over there will take care of you as they take care of us, and are the title sponsor of this here show. Tobias, good morning. I know it's been crazy, man. Just first impressions as we wait on the Sweet 16 will be tipping off today at some point. But just the first couple weeks, month of the portal, I mean, what are your impressions and kind of reactions?
I think it's been crazy and interesting. This year, I think the kids, they were getting in earlier. So I found that very interesting. Some of them, as soon as they lost in their conference tournament, they got in. Whereas last year, they kind of waited. They kind of waited till the opening day. This year, they kind of were getting in. And you see some kids like Millette that went to Alabama, and then Troy D'Amico that went to DePaul. They got in, visited one school, they committed immediately because they didn't want to, wait for all these other guys to get in. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, another one, speaking of Ole Miss and this podcast here being an Ole Miss centric podcast, I know Michael Ajayi from Pepperdine, it had been reported that he was looking at the Zags and he was looking at Ole Miss and setting up a visit, and then boom, commits to Gonzaga. I don't know if he took a visit. I mean, he's from Washington, so I'm sure he's familiar. But yeah, pretty quick. So that seems to be the theme, right, guys? Gauge interest, meet with coaches. Do the people call it speed dating, but I guess once you have a spot, you got to grab it, right?
Right, for sure. Yeah, I think too. Some of these guys, some of them may even have an idea where they want to go beforehand. So, whenever they get in, it's only like, well, I only want to talk to these 4 schools. So it makes the process much smoother. Some guys, they come in with the impression, oh, I'll get in on Monday. I want to be out by Tuesday, like the following Tuesday. So they don't want to do all the back and forth. So I think it's just interesting with how the handlers, the kids they're adjusting very quickly. So I find that interesting.
Yeah. You cover everybody. You're a national guy. You work for The Athletic, so big time publication that does everything. We're more essentially focused on Ole Miss, obviously, but from you, like the 3,000-foot view of the portal, I know a lot of people have gripes and with NIL and the portal, and everybody's bouncing around, and some people think, oh, it's ruining the sport. I think the opposite. I think the sport is as healthy as ever. The tournament's always going to be great, but I think the talent's spreading out more. It's giving more programs opportunities, and then you see more programs investing more in the game and investing more in their basketball program. What's your take on how everything has evolved in the last couple of years?
I like it a lot. I mean, I think some of the people that don't like it might be a former coach or, the older coach that, well, back in my day, that type of thing. And I was like, well, back in your day, you had more power and control over the kids also. So, I was talking to a college coach one day. He was like, well, Tobias, back when I was here, he was at a Big East school like 8 to 10 years ago. He was like, back in my day, we had no one leave. Well, I was like, yeah, sure, they couldn't leave because they have to sit out. I said, that's why they didn't transfer. I was like, that's not a flex or a compliment of not saying because he's a good coach, but still, like they couldn't leave. They had to sit out. So I said, you're not really saying anything. So I was like, I think it's good for the sport. It definitely adds more parity. You have teams that they kind of were out of it and they can, get a decent team together and they can make a run. So I think it adds more parity to the sport. I also think that it gives coaches a shorter leash as far as job security because you have the ability to recruit guys and get better so quickly that they're like, well, hey man, you got 2, 3 seasons. Unfortunately, Robin Lanier, he wasn't there long. He ended up bouncing back on his feet, but I think it makes it just their timeline is just shorter. Even you're seeing coaches now. A coach loses in the tournament, he gets a new job the next day. So
Yeah.
he has to immediately flip the script and go back into the portal and try to get guys for his new program.
Another question I get a lot, and I have an idea. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious how it works, but you talk to coaches a lot more than I do or anyone else. But these these programs that are still in the tournament right now, but are still talking to these guys that are in the portal. I know that's probably for an analyst, a GM, an ops guy, but how do coaches and coaching staffs juggle prepping for the Sweet 16, but also like, hey, we got to keep an eye on the portal, and if this guy gets in, we got to talk to him. How does that happen?
I think it's tough. I think they literally have to do both. That's why I think you trust some of your scouting guys, some of your ops guys, like, hey, coach, I know we're preparing for such and such, but such and such got in. So, maybe it's just a quick text. You may have another assistant that's really good with those type of things. He can juggle both. But I think, because you're seeing it now, they're in the portal, they're hearing from guys that'll play today. So I think it's just a big juggling job of it. And sometimes the coaches, they've heard things in the past they've heard, oh, such and such might get in. So they're already prepared to message their kid whenever he does officially get in the portal.
Looking at some of the names on Ole Miss's board, it's helpful that you're here on the show with us because you cover everybody. So for those that aren't familiar with some of these names, I know just running through, we'll go kind of position by position. I'm not going to do the whole list, but some of these that I know Ole Miss has reached out to and shown interest in. Just kind of wanted to get your take on a few of them. One in particular, Ole Miss was after heavy last year in the portal, ended up staying at Central Arkansas, um, sat out due to injury, but had some good numbers before the injury. Cameron Hunter, about 17 a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists in 22-23. But Atlantic Sun Freshman of the Year.
Yeah.
I know Ole Miss has reached out. I don't know if you've seen him live or been around him much, but what are your thoughts on Hunter?
I like Hunter. He can really really score. He kind of three ball was okay. He shot the last season he played. He shot 31% on five, almost 5.5 attempts. He really can score. Good size, about 6'3". He definitely fits what Beard likes to do and what he's done successful with teams in the past. So I definitely can see the fit there. He likes to run with those multiple guards that can all kind of trade off the bounce. So I definitely would like that fit.
Another kind of a different style of guard, but someone I think is going to be coveted in the portal because of the experience. Tony Perkins from Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
I know Ole Miss has reached out quickly. Over 1,100 points at Iowa in 4 seasons. But like I said, really experienced guy, played in the Big Ten. I know
Yeah.
that's something that stands out to coaching staffs. But what about Perkins? Do you like?
Like he's tough. I think the last 2 years he's averaged, I think, over a steal and a half the last 2 seasons. Like you said, over a 1,200 point score, good size at about 6'4". And he's tough. To be a guard in the Big Ten, you have to be physical. Just a very physical league. It's almost like wrestling pretty much every game. So being like tough guys. When he's been good, his guards have been tough. He needs those type of players, especially in the SEC where that league is super physical. It's all about, they play super fast. I think he wants to try to get guys like that, especially guys he can trust in the half court also.
One guy in the front court that Ole Miss has prioritized quickly, hasn't gotten one on the calendar yet, but I imagine he will get a visit scheduled soon. Sam Alexis from Chattanooga, um,
Mm.
first team all defense, was a third team all conference guy, big physical, 6'9", well over 220, 230. Um, uh, 33 games, started 32 of them, and just over 2 blocks per game. Seems like the type of guy that Beard wants in the paint, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think too and this happened with new coaches last year. He had a couple of guys. Not saying he didn't want them, but they were returning from the season before. So this is an opportunity for him to bring in his own guys. And thing with Alexis, I think he's only a sophomore, so he'll have a couple more seasons to play, so you can get him in your program for a couple of years, develop him, and just constantly work with them. I think that's one thing coaches are going to do as well. They're going to try to get some of those sophomore, junior guys instead of doing the grad transfer every time, because you're going to have to bring guys in that you can develop and keep them over a couple of years.
Going over to center, last one here I wanted to get your thoughts on. Curious to get your thoughts here because a guy that he hadn't played a ton, but was a highly regarded prospect out of high school, Michael Nwoko from Miami. Big dude, was a McDonald's All-American game nominee. I know he played in 29 games as a freshman. The numbers weren't great, but I think a very skilled big man that that Ole Miss could utilize.
I love him. I was actually talking to him yesterday. I love that kid. He can play. Big fan of prolific prep kid. He's another one. I mean, I think too the strategy may be like, for example, in Nwoko, he didn't. I think that was like almost 3 points a game. The market for him at the moment, he had a bunch of schools reaching out, but I feel like the competition for those guys is less. So if you have Amari Williams, he's a grad transfer. Everybody in the country is going to recruit that kid.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't land him, but the odds of you landing him over Nwoko are just different. So I feel like either Nwoko, he has 4 years to play, top 70, 80 kid. But I mean, he looks like he's built like a truck. I would definitely try to get there. I'm a big fan of this game. I think he even has some potential to be a pick and pop guy from the elbow, maybe free throw line area. So he would be a nice prospect too for them to try to get in.
All right, Tobias, I'm gonna clear the floor. I'm gonna get you the ball. We're gonna ISO. Let you kind of freestyle here. Who are not even Ole Miss related, but just who are some of the names that are in the portal now that that you like? Some of the bigger names or just underrated guys that you think can make that jump to the Power Five and excel.
One would be St. Thomas at Northern Colorado. He averaged 20 and 10 a game, 4 assists, all Big Sky first team. I mean, everyone's going to recruit that kid for good reason, and they should. Kobe Rogers at Wichita State, big time scorer, really good kid as well. I want to see where he ends up. Somewhere probably that'll play kind of fast if he can really kind of get downhill and attack. Lynn, he's at a high major, but Lynn Kidd, I think he was fourth in the country in field goal percentage. I think he shot like 67% from the field.
Yeah, I wrote about him early. I think he was like 66% from the field. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like fourth in the conference. Like that's insane. So, I think that was like 12. Then what I like about him is he only played like 22 minutes a game. So, you kind of bump that up closer to 30, he's probably averaging a double-double. Maybe the efficiency goes down a tad, but if he's at 62%, that's great, So guys like that, and then maybe another one would be DJ Burns at Youngstown. He was fourth in the country in rebounding. He's about 6'9". He can guard multiple positions. Again, he's one of the best rebounders in the country. And for him to be a 4/5, he shot 1 for 3 from this year. That's not bad. That's respectable. So I want to definitely see where those guys end up.
The College Corner is headed to Oxford. Stop by their new location in the Oxford Commons off Sisk Avenue. They'll have 4,000 square feet of Rebel gear ready for your trip to the Grove. On your next trip to Oxford, stop by the College Corner or our other great locations in Ridgeland and Flowood. Hats, shirts, polos, pullovers, sweats, t-shirts. College Corner has it all. And as always, you can visit us online at collegecornerstore.com. That's collegecornerstore.com. The College Corner, where your game day apparel meets.
Call Drew Moak of USA Benefits Group. He can help you with any of your health insurance needs. Drew is an Ole Miss grad located in Mississippi and licensed in 7 states. He works with the nation's second largest health insurance brokerage with access to 35 different carriers, regular health plans, to life insurance, to dental and vision, and even Medicare. He has it all covered. Now more than ever, it is critical to have a health insurance agent who is local and accessible. So call Drew Moak at 601-953-8449. 601-953-8449 and get your free quote today. Before we hit record, we were talking a little bit about you're a Red Raider. You graduated from Texas Tech, and you and Beard got there around the same time. I want to get your thoughts on Beard and year one at Ole Miss. Real quick before we do that and we get your thoughts, I do want to remind everybody This show is also brought to you by USA Benefits Group and Mr. Drew Moak. If you're looking to cut those health insurance premiums by as much as 20 to 30%, look no further than USA Benefits Group and Drew Moak. You can call him 601-953-8449 or check him out, usabg.com/DMOAK. You can get a free quote. He does everything from life insurance to dental, vision, Medicare. He's got it all covered. He's in Mississippi, but licensed in 7 states, has access to 35 different carriers, and he works with the nation's second largest health insurance brokerage. So local and accessible, and can help you regardless of whether you're in Mississippi or not. So that's Drew Moak and USA Benefits Group. Call him today, 601-953-8449. All right. Yeah, so year one, I know my colleague Ben Garrett and I, we kind of set the over-under at 20.5 wins before the season started. They were right there at 20. I think Beard would be the first one to tell you, a little disappointing down the stretch. Really let some games slip out of their hands. I wouldn't say they had a ton of bad losses, but just a couple. But as someone who saw Beard at Texas Tech and how he just kind of the meteoric rise to the national championship game and the national runner-up finish, and how well he coached and got teams to perform there. What are your thoughts on year one at Ole Miss, and what do you expect in year two?
The season was solid. I mean, they started off the year. I mean, I thought pretty decent. I mean, I think in December they were undefeated. I believe. I don't think they lost the game until I think maybe the second game they had in January. But I think it was just a consistency, like you say. I think in January they lost 3 times, and in February you lose all the games to 1. So it was, it was that month that kind of did them in. But I think Beard's a great coach. I mean, when we were at Tech, we were blessed enough to have him. He took that program to heights that we never expected. No one was trying to go to Lubbock and watch Tech play basketball at the time. So he really took that place to another level. He did it quickly. His first year, it kind of struggled, and he goes to Elite Eight national championship. Unfortunately, he left and went to Texas. But I think he's a great coach, and I think that he can. I don't want to say fix Ole Miss, but I know that he can take that school and make them a top program in the SEC. I know that he can do that, and I think that he will.
Last thing here before I let you get out of here. What are your thoughts on Kentucky keeping John Calipari? I've been going back and forth with some people around here in Nashville who, we're close to Kentucky, so they're Kentucky fans here and just SEC basketball fans in general. I thought it was the right move. I mean, the resume is as loud as any in the country. It's hard to really, truly upgrade from John Calipari. What do you think about him staying? And I guess, what do you think is the issue and how they can't get over the hump?
So I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. First, I only think there are a few people that can even coach at Kentucky. He's one of them. There's not many because the expectations are super high, the history, all the stuff we already know.
Yeah.
I think the issue is if you get some time, I want the listeners to go look at his recruiting classes starting in about 2017 to 2018. Some of those kids weren't very good. A lot of them left. Johnny Juzang was a Kentucky kid. He didn't play. Bryce Hopkins was there. Keon Brooks was there. Some of those kids, Lance Ware, they went to Kentucky, didn't play. They go to another school. They're some of the best kids in their league. You have a couple other kids. E.J. Montgomery wasn't very good. Khalil Whitney leaves in the middle of the season. So I think the issue is, and don't get me wrong, he's had a ton of pros. I mean, you go look at the All-Star game. I think 30%, 20% of them were Kentucky kids. So, but I think since then he hasn't been able to get those John Walls, the Aaron Foxes consistently, and that's because of NIL and the transfer portal. So now, at those times, Kentucky sold itself. If you want to be a one-and-done pro, Kentucky is where you want to go. Now it's not like it anymore. It's playing for the future. So now I think that not necessarily him, but Kentucky staff as a whole, they have to get back to really, being disciplined and scouting these kids properly and getting the right kids that fit Kentucky. And I think that's how they'll be able to fix it. But I'm serious. If you get some time, go look at some of those recruiting classes. You had 1 pro out of the 6. we had one kid that stayed at the entire recruiting class. That's the issue.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too, like you mentioned with NIL and how it's not just a slam dunk. Oh, you get the Kentucky offer. You know, it's like it was in football with Alabama and Nick
Yeah.
Saban. When Nick Saban offered you, it was pretty much over.
Right.
Calipari gives you an offer in basketball. Good chance Kentucky's
Right.
going to land you. It's not like that anymore. I grew up in Memphis, so I was around that program when he was there and just how good they were. Do you think a lot of it is also with the dribble drive and how he just kind of relies on dudes to make plays and he doesn't run a ton of sets? Do you think that has something to do with it, or is it all kind of lumped in?
I think it can be that, and then two, I think he's had good shooters, maybe one, two. I think there's maybe more perimeter shooting may have helped him. Don't get me wrong, he had Tyler Hero, he has the kid there now, the grad transfer. He can really shoot it, but I think it's hard when you're four of your top five players are freshmen or a sophomore that didn't play that much as a freshman. It's hard. It's hard when you're playing 23, 22-year-olds. You know, they've been in that environment before, and then most freshmen, they struggle in March. When four of your five best players are freshmen, I mean, we saw the game against Oakland. Wagner didn't score. Edwards didn't play well. Reed didn't play well. Dillingham, I think he had 10, but it was super inefficient. You're going to need older guys around them to mold them and get them into that point. Because it's cool, you know, when they're scoring 100 points a game and during the regular season, but the tournament, each possession matters. And you're playing Goki, who's, you know, he's shooting it from the parking lot. It's hard. It's tough.
Yeah. I remember during that game, I was talking to a coach, and I was like, I don't think Calipari's run a set in the last 10 minutes. And
No.
he replied and was like, Calipari runs sets? Like, well,
yeah.
But
it's because he's had the talent. No one can guard De'Aaron Fox and John Wall 1-on-1. You just couldn't do it. You don't have those. You don't have those anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people can win a lot of games when you've got Derrick Rose running the point. Yeah. I mean, that helps. Yeah.
It helps.
So I guess last thing, you know, you don't need to give away anything, but I mean, we were kind of talking before about what's to come with the portal. You know, Sweet 16 starts Thursday, Friday, Elite Eight, Saturday, Sunday. You know, Final Four is going to be here next week. Are there going to be some big time shockwaves coming when some of these teams drop out and some other guys start looking to get in the portal?
Absolutely. I think if you look at some of I won't name teams, but I mean the 16 teams that are left, there's going to be probably a guy or two on most of those schools that are going to get in. They're going to leave their schools now. I always found it interesting. Like a kid, he knows he's going to leave, but he's on the team, and they're winning. I always wonder, like, how does that work? Like, you get down 6 with 4 minutes left. Are you kind of like excited, or are you pissed? Is it somewhere in between both? Like, because you kind of already have one foot out the door anyway. So I wonder how does that like work mentally. But there will be some big names from first, second team, all conference guys that'll be getting in, not just from the teams that are left, but some of the teams that are already lost.
All right, that's Tobias Bass of The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at Tobias_Bass. He's got the Bass bombs going every day, portal stuff. Super connected guy. I'm a huge fan of The Athletic. It's one of the better deals you can get in terms of a subscription service for sports. So check him out on Twitter. Check out The Athletic. We appreciate it, man. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
That'll do it for the Flagship. This Thursday, Sweet 16 games underway. We'll be back Friday, and then next week as the Final Four gets underway. Stay locked in, OM Spirit. Look, just go ahead and open a tab and just keep that portal hub and just hit refresh because I've been updating it constantly. There'll be more names getting in. Ole Miss casting that wide net, trying to rebuild the roster for next year. And then, look, if you're not already a subscriber, it's only $1. Jump in, get in the conversation on the message board. We'd love to have you. So for Tobias over there, I'm Zach. This has been the Flagship. We appreciate y'all. Till next time, we out of here.